The lively hum of Westbridge Financial echoed with the rhythm of a busy workday. Customers shuffled in and out, their voices blending into a constant murmur against the backdrop of ringing phones and the rhythmic tapping of keyboards. A faint aroma of freshly brewed coffee wafted from the break room, offering a brief moment of solace to employees passing by. At the central teller station sat Lucas Whitmore, a man who prided himself on his perceived authority. His neatly pressed shirt, polished silver cufflinks, and meticulously styled dark blonde hair were all carefully curated to exude a sense of superiority. Behind his pale blue eyes lurked an air of condescension that many of his colleagues had come to resent. Among both employees and regular customers, Lucas had a reputation, one that revolved around his smug demeanor and thinly veiled prejudices. As his gaze swept across the lobby, he took particular note of a woman approaching his station. She walked with an air of quiet confidence, dressed in a tailored navy suit that accentuated her poised presence. Her rich brown curls framed her face elegantly, and the rhythmic click of her polished heels against the marble floor commanded attention. She reached the counter and placed her account card in front of him with measured precision. "I'd like to access my account, please," she said, her voice calm yet firm. Lucas picked up the card and barely glanced at it before flipping it back toward her. His smirk deepened as he leaned against the counter. "I'm sorry, ma'am," he said, his tone dripping with artificial courtesy. "We've had some issues with accounts like yours, suspicious activity. You'll need to return another time." The woman's expression remained composed, but her sharp eyes narrowed slightly. "Excuse me? What sort of issues are you referring to?" she asked, her voice unwavering. Lucas leaned in slightly, lowering his voice just enough to feign confidentiality, though his arrogance remained intact. "Let's just say we have protocols for accounts flagged for certain reasons. You understand, don't you?" The insinuation was unmistakable. A murmur rippled through the lobby as other customers began to take notice of the exchange. The woman straightened her posture, a flicker of irritation appearing beneath her otherwise controlled demeanor. "I need access to my funds immediately," she stated, her tone carrying an undeniable edge. Lucas leaned back and crossed his arms, his smug grin never faltering. "Not possible. It's bank policy." The tension in the air grew heavier as a few nearby customers stopped their transactions to observe the escalating confrontation. The woman's gaze did not waver. "Call your manager," she demanded, her voice clear and authoritative. For the first time, a brief hesitation flickered across Lucas's face, though he quickly masked it. With a sigh of exaggerated boredom, he pressed the button on his headset. "Assistant manager to counter 3, he announced, his tone laced with thinly veiled annoyance. Moments later, a wiry man in his late 40s emerged from the office area, his tie slightly askew and forehead glistening with nervous sweat. His eyes darted between Lucas and the woman before addressing the situation cautiously. "What seems to be the problem here?" he asked, his voice tentative. The woman didn't waste time on pleasantries. "I need access to my account. Your employee has refused to assist me and is withholding my funds without justification." Before the assistant manager could respond, Lucas interjected smoothly. "It's flagged, sir. Likely fraud." His nonchalant tone carried the same condescension that had underscored his earlier remarks. The assistant manager shifted uncomfortably, clearly unsure how to proceed. "Well, ma'am," he began, hesitantly, "if your account is flagged, I am fully aware of your procedures," the woman interrupted, her voice sharp but controlled. "Either you resolve this issue now, or I will escalate it far beyond your authority." A hush fell over the immediate area as the assistant manager's face paled. A quiet murmur of intrigue rippled through the surrounding customers and staff. Lucas, however, remained unimpressed. With a smirk, He muttered under his breath, "Good luck with that." The woman's gaze snapped to him, her eyes ice cold. "You will regret those words," she said quietly, the certainty in her voice leaving no room for doubt. Later that afternoon, an unexpected meeting was called for all employees of Westbridge Financial. Whispers filled the air as the staff gathered, many speculating about the abrupt nature of the assembly. Lucas sauntered into the meeting room with his usual self-assured demeanor, assuming the announcement would be of little concern to him. He leaned back in his chair, a smirk playing at his lips. Then, at the head of the room, stood the same woman from earlier that day. She was dressed in a crisp white blouse and sleek black blazer, her commanding presence undeniable. She let the silence stretch for a moment before speaking. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice steady and powerful. "Allow me to introduce myself properly. I am Vanessa Thornton, your new regional director." A wave of shock rippled through the room. Employees exchanged glances, and more than a few pairs of eyes darted toward Lucas, whose smug expression had evaporated entirely. Vanessa continued, "I've spent the past week reviewing operations at this branch, and I've identified several issues that require immediate attention. Let me make one thing clear. Discriminatory behavior and poor customer service will no longer be tolerated." Lucas sat stiffly in his chair, his earlier arrogance replaced with unease. As Vanessa spoke, she detailed new policies aimed at fostering a more inclusive and professional environment. Mandatory training sessions on anti-discrimination policies and customer service excellence were implemented. Employee feedback surveys soon revealed patterns of biased behavior, many of which pointed directly back to Lucas. Eventually, Vanessa called Lucas into her office. "Mr. Whitmore," she said, her tone professional but firm, "I've reviewed your behavior during last week's incident. Do you have anything to say for yourself?" Lucas stammered, I didn't realize it shouldn't have mattered," Vanessa interrupted. "Your actions were unprofessional and rooted in prejudice. Consider this your formal warning. Step out of line again, and you'll be terminated." Lucas nodded stiffly, his face devoid of color. Vanessa dismissed him, and as he exited her office, he was met with hushed whispers and knowing glances from colleagues who had witnessed the earlier exchange. Outside in the lobby, customers and employees alike quietly applauded the shift in leadership. Vanessa allowed herself a small smile. Justice, she thought, was not just about holding people accountable. It was about creating lasting change.